Yes, indeed. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just raise that a little. So, okay, so last week we started talking about moods, emotions, and feelings. And what we said was that you can't always trust the mood that you're in. And when you do, you allow your mood to control your life. And it's meant to be the other way around. You're meant to have control over your emotions so that your emotions don't have control over you. Just because you wake up in a horrible mood doesn't mean that you have to have a horrible day. It really doesn't. This morning we're going to go a little bit deeper into this subject, and our text today comes from a great part of the Bible called the book of Jeremiah, and we're in chapter 17 and verse 5, where the writer says, "Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, and whose heart turns away from the Lord." Now, in this sentence, we're being asked to think about a person whose life isn't going according to plan. So just exchange the word cursed for whatever synonym you like, and you'll get the idea. This person is unlucky. This person has 2 left feet. This person goes from bad day to bad day. Everything this person touches turns to disaster. And you'll notice that the writer has a very firm opinion as to why this happens. He says, you'll notice, their trust is in the wrong place. Just to give you a little bit of background, the protagonists at this part of the Bible are living in a situation that is far from ideal. I won't go into the specifics of it. Suffice to say that these words were written at a time when absolutely everything was messed up, nothing was working. They are living in a situation that they don't like. They're doing a job that they absolutely hate. They have zero stability, zero security. Everything is going badly. And here's the thing. When everything in your life is messed up, when you're in a situation where things stop working, it's then particularly that you start to hear a voice coming from inside you. And that voice tells you things, because that's what voices do. They talk to you. And that voice begins to express a very firm opinion about who you are and what you can do and where you're going and what you're capable of and why you're in this mess. And when the sentence talks about the flesh, that in part is what it's talking about. That thing inside you that is against you. That part of your own life, that thing in your head that is oftentimes your own worst enemy and your most severe critic. And that thing obviously is felt as feelings. That's where you feel life, obviously, in your feelings. So what this writer is saying is that particularly when your life is messed up, particularly when everything has fallen apart from you, and you wake up in the morning and you just don't feel like it, and it's difficult for you to get yourself going, it's at those times in your life particularly that you can't always believe the things that you're thinking. Because remember, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And therefore, if you're silly enough to make decisions based upon the untrue thoughts that are running through your head on your bad days, and if you make decisions based upon those untrue thoughts, if you allow those untrue thoughts to dictate the kind of day you're going to have, then I'm very sorry, but your life is going to go from bad to worse. Your bad situation is going to stay bad at best. Just because you think it doesn't mean you have to believe it. When things get rough, your emotions often take you to a place either of despair or of dishonesty, both of which are unhelpful. At the despair end of things, your head can sometimes be full of thoughts like, it's over, I'm done, it's too late. I'll never get out of it this time. This time I've really done it. This time I'm really finished. At the dishonesty end of things, your head can be full of thoughts like, I just need to cut a few corners on this one deal, otherwise I won't make it. I just need to compromise my morality on this one issue, otherwise I'll be lonely. I just need to turn my back on what's right and wrong this one time, otherwise my needs won't get met. And hey, we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves for thinking those thoughts, because when life gets desperate, so too do our moods. There isn't a single person in this church who at some point in their life hasn't thought about giving up on hope or succumbing to temptation. Rough patches will do that to you. We all have an inner person who sometimes never shuts up, who's never shy of giving us an opinion on how wrong we are and how wrong we need to be. But remember what we learned last week, and remember it well. Just because you think it doesn't mean you need to believe it. Just because you're feeling it doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean you need to agree with it. Which is why this writer says what he says. If you trust flesh, aka what's in you, what's in your head, what's in your heart, your moods, your feelings, your emotions. And if you allow your moods to control your life, if you believe every thought that you think, if you agree with every feeling that you have, then your life won't work. I'm sorry. Your bad situation won't get better. Then the next sentence he carries on in that vein. He says that person will be like a bush in the wastelands. They will not see prosperity when it comes. They will dwell in the parched places of the desert, in a salt land where no one lives. Notice the use of the word see. The idea here is that better days are coming. And if you just hold firm, unlike the guy in this sentence, then you will see those better days. If you take your lead in life from your values and from your goals, and not from your moods and your emotions, then you'll pull through this situation that you're in. But if you don't, you won't. It's always so important to remember that messed up situations tend not to stay messed up forever. Like everything else in life, those times pass. They definitely pass. But this guy in this sentence doesn't get to see those better days because he folded. He gave in to despair. He succumbed to dishonesty. He listened to himself when he should instead have spoken to himself. In the long history of our species, how many people never ever got to see the better days, the happier times that were just around the corner for them because they gave up too soon, when instead they should have dug deep and fought harder. They listened to the mood that they were in instead of holding fast to their values and their goals. And that better thing that was just around the corner, they never ever got to see. It passed them by. Now, changing tack slightly. I should give a disclaimer before I say what I'm about to say. This is going to sound like a very male thing to say. It might even sound like a very single male thing to say. Now you can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. Listen, seriously, no one likes a complicated person. Complicated people are a little bit of a nightmare. And by complicated, what I mean is being around this person requires a PhD level knowledge of whatever mood they happen to be in. Do you know what I mean? Do you know who I mean? A complicated person is always in some kind of a mood, and they're just difficult to be around because you're never really sure what kind of a mood they're in, and you're certainly never sure of how you're supposed to behave around them when they're in that mood. Those are the people in your life who you have to walk on eggshells around. Now, people like that think they're very strong because they're good at using their emotions to manipulate you. That's what they think. But in fact, they're incredibly weak because they are controlled by their emotions. Notice then, getting back to the text, in this sentence, the writer talks about a bush. And it seems, reading into the text, that the bush is a little bit complicated. The bush is a little bit finicky and fragile. And as you know, perhaps from your own experience, there's nothing worse than a complicated, finicky, fragile plant. Listen to this. I'm about to read you the care instructions for the peace lily. Now, what I'm about to read you must be true because I got it from the internet. And I had to get it from the internet because I like looking at plants, but I can't have plants. Plants will die in proximity to me. I just can't do that. Anyway, listen to the care instructions for the peace lily. Don't place your peace lily where it will be exposed to direct sunlight, or drafts, or heating vents. Very dry air, direct heat, and chills are the enemies of your peace lily. Provided your peace lily is happy, expect its flowers to last a good while. The plant should ideally be placed on a bed of pebbles, and care should be taken to avoid overwatering. Dip your finger into the soil for an inch to ensure that it's not waterlogged, and ideally you should consider using a spray bottle for watering. However, care should be taken to avoid the leaves getting wet. If they do get wet, dry them with a tissue. In the summer, open the window so that natural airflow will circulate. Or on still days in the summer or in winter, consider using an oscillating fan to gently stir the air. Move it around occasionally so that one spot isn't being overblown. When I read all that, I'm thinking, I just can't be bothered. Let it die. I don't even care for my kids that well. Let it go. What this sentence, this paragraph, this book is telling me is that unless the environmental circumstances surrounding this particular thing are absolutely ideal, then it won't flourish, it won't survive, it won't be happy, and it won't do well in life. But if there's any problems whatsoever, if life throws this plant the slightest of curveballs, it'll go into a meltdown and it won't give you a flower. And then you'll be sorry, won't you? And that's the context of the bush in this biblical sentence. It had to cope with an environmental situation that was less than perfect. But rather than digging down and getting on with it, it chose instead to go into a complete meltdown. So if you are a complicated person in that, you need everything in your life to be absolutely perfect. And you need the people in your life to be continually running around you with an oscillating fan and tissues so that your leaves don't get wet. Otherwise, your emotions won't be able to cope and you'll go into a meltdown. And then you'll start believing the stuff in your head and you start making bad decisions based upon the stuff in your head. Because you don't have any values, you don't have any goals, you don't have anything that's deeper than the things you're feeling, then this sentence in the Bible has some very true words for you. Not harsh, true words for you. And those true words are, you need to get a grip. Because no one is interested in your complicated, finicky, fragile thing. They're not. Listen. high stress is no excuse for high drama. The people in your life, they love drama for the 2 hours of a movie, but for the 24 hours of your day, they just can't be bothered. It's exhausting. It's tiring them out. And you don't want the people in your life to be exhausted by you. You don't want people around you to be turned off by how needy you always are. People are going to get fed up of having to run around you with that oscillating fan. They just are. So the negative tone of these initial verses actually gives us a very positive, inspiring message. And that is, when life gets hard, don't listen to yourself. Talk to yourself. In fact, give yourself a talking to. Talk sense to yourself. Talk common sense into your own voice. Say things like, hey, you are stronger than you think. Isn't that always true? You've been through hard times before. You got through that. You'll get through this. Isn't that always true? You're not an idiot. You're not a failure. You can do this. This isn't the end. You can hack it. And so regardless of what you feel, when you talk sense to yourself, you don't give in to despair. And you don't succumb to dishonesty. Instead, what you do is you hold on to your values and you stick to your goals so that when life eventually turns around, and it does, when the good times eventually come, and they do, you'll get to see it. You won't be wreckage on the road way back then. You'll be ready. Then, having spoken negatively about the guy who gave in to his emotions and let his emotions take over his life, he then speaks positively about the other guy who didn't. He says, "Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when the heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in the year of drought and never fails to bear fruit." So in those sentences, Jeremiah is asking us to think about a tree where health and growth do not seem possible. The environment in this sentence is again far from ideal. But notice the strong words in these sentences. Trust, confidence. And notice also that those strong words are pointed at something outside of the writer's life. In this case, his faith in God and the values that have arisen from it. So this is the kind of person whom we would aspire to be. This is the kind of person who wakes up in the morning and says, you know what? This morning I'm not feeling it. I'm in a bad place today. I can't put my socks on today. I'm in a funk today and I just can't get out of it. But even though I'm not feeling it, I'm going to do it anyway. Because my life isn't dictated by emotions. My life is dictated by my values and my goals, by things deeper and stronger than what mood I happen to be in. And so notice that when the emotions and the environment and the circumstances turn up the heat in this person's life, he doesn't wither and die. He doesn't have a meltdown. He just digs deep and keeps going. Because he's got himself a set of goals. He's got himself a set of values. And that is the kind of person you would wish to be. The kind of person who's able to handle it. To hold it together. And I know you know this already, but it's good to be reminded. The people in your life want you to handle it. The people who need you want you to be strong. They don't want to always have to bring you an oscillating fan. They want you to be able to dig deep and keep going. Have a look at this. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. If I had Bible verses on my fridge, which I don't, this would be one of them. Therefore, strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble, and make straight paths for your feet. Those are tough words that make a ton of sense. This life that you're in, it wants to dump a ton of hassle on your lap. And it will. And some of that stuff, it's going to make its way inside your head. And then you're going to start feeling things and thinking things, and they're not true. And if you're not strong, you'll believe some of the untrue thoughts in your own head. You'll be dictated by some of the untrue feelings that you're feeling. And then you'll go from bad to worse, and you'll spoil not just your life, but the lives of those you love. Any Walking Dead fans in the church? This is really a Walking Dead church. I made that clear before. One of the motifs in The Walking Dead is that there are two kinds of people in the world. Those who get it and those who don't. Those who understand that they have to be strong to survive, and those who think everyone else is going to be strong on their behalf. And that idea is in the Bible too. It's not the only idea in the Bible, but it's in the Bible. The Bible asks you to get yourself strong, to strengthen your own hands, to strengthen your own knees, so that you can make straight paths for your own feet and make good decisions for yourself. What you feel like, I get it, but what you feel like is often irrelevant, because what you feel like is often untrue. However, I've said all that, now let me take a step back from what I've said. It's great being me. That is not to say that the Bible asks you to suppress your emotions. It doesn't. The Bible is full of emotions, as you would expect it to be, because emotions are a sign of life. We're human. We're meant to get mad and sad. We're supposed to be tempted and hateful and discouraged and despondent and afraid and industrious and lazy and euphoric. We're alive. And feeling things is a sign of life. The only people who don't feel are the dead. Feeling is good. And I think that suppressing moods and emotions and feelings isn't a sign of strength, and it isn't helpful. I think it's far stronger to say, I'm not feeling good, but I'm going to get on with it anyway, rather than saying, I'm feeling fine. Do you ever meet those people? They nod their heads so much when they say they're feeling fine, you think they're going to crack. I'm feeling fine. That's not good. Don't suppress it. If you're not feeling fine, admit it. The latest trailer for Star Wars 7 dropped this week. The internet pretty much lost its mind. Here's a factoid for you. Carrie Fisher. Carrie, as you know, played the role of Princess Leia in the franchise. She suffers from all kinds of horrible mental issues. How about that? Princess Leia has mental issues. I think that's so encouraging. Look at what she said. She said, I am mentally ill. There you go. There you go. I'm mentally ill. I can say that. I'm not ashamed of that. I survived that. and I'm still surviving it, bring it on. Those are strong words. My life is a mess today. Here's my reality. Sorry if it upsets you, but I'm really not feeling it. But I hacked it in the past. I'm damn sure I can hack it in the present. And so I'm sure I'll be able to hack it tomorrow. I'm alright. It's not perfect, but I'm okay. I've dug deep. I got some values. I got some goals. I got some things going on in my life, more important than the mood I happened to wake up in today. So how do you know you can hack it? Let's go back to what Jeremiah wrote. Notice, please, that the difference between the tree that survived the drought and the fragile, complicated, finicky shrub that did not is a simple matter of just roots. I'm told that the roots on a tree are always wider than its widest branches. I thought that was kind of interesting. And applying that into our lives, as this part of the Bible does, it would therefore seem to be a weakness to be more concerned with branches than roots. To be more concerned with leaves than foundations. This guy dug deep in life. And he got himself a decent set of values. He thought through this life thing, and he acquired himself a decent set of goals. And those things were always, always, always given priority over his feelings and over his unhelpful environment. Okay, so I should probably go soon, but let me suggest three things we can say to ourselves. Self-talk is important in life. Let me suggest three practical things we can say to ourselves that will help us fight our moods and help us get on with our day. I think it's helpful to review, to remain, and to regard. There you go. Review, remain, and regard. Review, first of all. Moods, you will have noticed, love to make mountains out of molehills. They love to make a big deal out of things that aren't really a big deal. I think we can all look back on difficult times that we thought were the end of the world, but they weren't. We thought we were going to be finished, but here we are today living proof that we weren't. So when you're having a meltdown about something, I think it's always helpful to try to downplay it in your own head. You know, it's only, what is it? It's only one dinner. How bad can it be? It's only one client, and I know he's a nightmare, but you can probably suck it up for an afternoon. And even if what you're in a tailspin about is absolutely a big deal, absolutely, it's still a good idea, I think, to try to get it in some kind of dispassionate context, so that you can find a common sense way of thinking through it and getting on with it. And even if it's a simple thing as saying, you know, this won't be the end of the world. I've got through worse, I can get through this. Downplay it as much as you can. Make little of your enemies, especially when they're in your own head. Also helpful, I think, to remain grateful. I think it's usually true to say that not everything in your life is bad all at once. The Bible says, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts and be thankful. Notice the connection. Let the peace of Christ rule in your heart and be thankful. So when your inner voice is drawing attention to what's wrong, pause to remember what's right. And some things are right. And you know what those things are. I like this cartoon. I think this is great. Every single day we make choices, and the choices we make affect the mood that we're in just as easily as our moods affect our choices. It is so empowering to realize that you can make choices to affect your moods, that you can take control and have power over your emotions. Sometimes it's as simple as remembering it's not all bad. I've got some great things going on. There's junk, yeah, but there's great things too. Things to be happy about. And then regard. The Bible asks us to consider other people as being more important than ourselves. Nothing will make you less of a self-absorbed drama queen or king quite so efficiently as helping other people and reaching out to them. Because often what those people do is remind you that your situation isn't nearly as bad as what you've persuaded yourself it is. Any quick questions on any of them? Okay, note to self, never have a conversation with Mark again, privately. Okay, so obviously the Bible is not, it depends what you mean by, the story that we spoke about this morning is a classic case in point. There are some parts of the Bible that are written as pieces of history. There are other parts of the Bible that are written as biographies. There are other parts of the Bible that are written as poems and as protests and as songs and so on and so forth. And so understanding the Bible requires a little bit of sensitivity to the particular kind of literature that we're dealing with. And there are different kinds of literature contained within the Bible. So that is often why the Bible is a book that's misunderstood, because it's not like, it's not like the Book of Mormon, for example, or or how some people read the Quran. It's not like it's it says this, so that's what this means. We need some sensitivity to the literature and to the poetry and so on and so forth. In the same way that when we get a card from our husband or wife for Valentine's Day that says my love is like a red, red rose. Well, it's not like a red, red rose at all. It's nothing like a red, red rose. It's just, but there's meaning in the poetry. Similarly, what we experienced this morning were words that were written about 500 BC. Those words emerged from an actual historical context, speaking a specific message to a specific people going through a specific situation. So we're sensitive to that. But we take those ancient words and without changing their meaning at all, we draw inspiration and hope from them. That's the business of reading the Bible. It's nuanced and it's subtle. And I think it works rather well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other private conversations we've had? We're going to
Save it for next week.
Save those for next week. Stay tuned for more revelations on what Darren and Mark said together. Any other questions before? I suspect part of the answer to that question is has to do with chemistry, which isn't something I know anything about. But I think it's true to say that we are often our own worst enemy. I mean, we can talk about the devil and we can talk about chemistry and so on and so forth, and those are legitimate conversations. But it is certainly true to say that we are often our own worst critic. Long before other people put us down, we put ourselves down. Long before other people persuade us to do things we shouldn't do, we persuade ourselves to do those things. And we just get ourselves into a bad place really easily all the time. And I think part of that is just a habit that we've gotten ourselves into. And the great thing about habits is that just as we've learned them, we can unlearn them. it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for us to get ourselves into the habit of, let's say, take a 10-week period. Not the whole of life, that's too difficult. 10 weeks. And let's, for 10 weeks, talk ourselves up as much as we can. Do you know what I mean? Try and change our self-talk and our internal conversations. Just because I feel like doing a bad thing doesn't mean I have to do it. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. Just because I feel I'm an idiot and I failed, that doesn't have to be true. I'm actually capable of making good decisions. I'm actually capable of doing it and hacking it. There would be no harm in doing that. Talking positively to ourselves for a set period of time and seeing what difference it makes. Let me know how it goes. We're out of time. We've got to go. More on this next week.